Yeah, it was kind of interesting too. I was thinking about it. I remember when I was watching pro wrestling as a kid. So Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, right? It was
Yep.
popular too, and I know he's done a lot of stuff with your dad. I know he's done like bodybuilding competitions with your pops and stuff. When he first came out, I loved the guy because he was built from Hawaii, right? They said he was from Hawaii, and his last name was Steamboat. So my family is actually related to Sam Mokuahi, who's Sammy Steamboat over here in Hawaii. And when Ricky came out, we all thought, oh, maybe that's cousin, right? Because he gets Steamboat last name and everything. Maybe he's part Asian too. So we all thought, oh
Yeah.
yeah, he is. When I found out he wasn't from Hawaii, I was so mad, man. Like, oh, you lied to me, bro. I can't believe that, man. Oh shoot. But yeah, your dad and Ricky were always up there and like my favorites, bro, in the golden era, yeah. Ricky.
Yeah, no, big fan of. No, I love Ricky Steamboat. Actually, when I first got to WWE on TV, not in the developmental part, but when I first got there on TV and we made our debut and stuff, I actually, a lot of people were trying to give me advice, yeah. And they were just trying to be helpful. And so a lot of people were talking to me, and I realized that okay, I cannot listen to everybody because I was going to get confused, right? And so I said, okay, Ricky Steamboat was one of our what we call agents, but or producers, and there it's like a kind of think of it like a coach for wrestlers, right? He's a veteran and he's been around the block, and so they basically help us younger guys out. And Ricky was one of those. And so I basically said, okay, because and this is a big thing for me. Everything's based on trust. Everything. Think about it. You asked your wife to marry you, or maybe she asked you, I don't know, right? But everything you do is based on trust, right? Everything. There's nothing you don't do that's based on trust. You get a job because somebody trusts you. You ask your wife to marry you because you trust, or I'm on this podcast because I trust you. I saw your video and I'm like, okay, yeah, I can trust this guy. Let me jump on here. So everything's based on trust. And I realized, okay, I can't listen to everybody. I can't trust everybody because I don't know who's out for what. I was like, okay, I know Ricky Steamboat. He worked with my dad. I can trust him. So I'll listen to him and I'll listen to one other person. And that was it. And everybody else, I let their advice come in, but I really would double check it with Ricky Steamboat. So was great that you brought his name up because he was somebody that really helped me a lot in those younger years, when I was starting out.
He kind of seems to have that kind of character too. Like when I've seen him in interviews, talking with other people, even just as a character on the show, he kind of has that character. Like he genuinely is somebody you could just trust. You know, except for saying he's from Hawaii, but other than that, that's the only thing.
He got you, man. But that's wrestling, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's that, right? I mean, his name's not The Rock, right? That's not his name. But it worked for the wrestling business. But I know, like that's how it is, right? For us, is if they're Polynesian or especially from Hawaii, you're like, oh yeah, we gravitate towards it. So like, I get it, I know. And then you find out he wasn't. You're like, oh man, this guy, he got me. Or I feel the same way, like in movies, right? When I watch movies and they're supposed to be a Polynesian character, right? And you realize they're not Polynesian, like, oh man, come on now.
Always,
I
bro.
mean,
Yeah.
and I'm sure other people feel that same way, from their own cultures. They feel that same way when they see it.
No, totally about it. My wife and I was just having a conversation about that too. There was this movie they were gonna shoot over here called Niihau, about the island of Niihau. And then they was gonna have this actor, this Holly guy, play this Hawaiian lead character. And bro, when I can't remember the actor's name, but when that happened, dude, you know how Polynesians and local people are, bro. They were like protesting the whole thing. You gotta be kidding me, bro. You're gonna have this guy play this famous soldier, Hawaiian soldier that was in Niihau protecting all this kind of stuff. He says, What? No more. You can't even get one Polynesian actor. No have to be Hawaiian, at least Samoan or something. Just anybody. Temi Ura Morrison, Rock, Momoa, anybody. Was so bad, dude. Sorry, I kind of went off on that one. Um, when you
All good.
yeah, if you talk about like not just wrestling, but just in your whole life, the things you've been able to do and accomplish, yeah, what would you say was your greatest triumph or triumphs in life, and then what would you say were like the craziest challenges that you've experienced in life, and how you overcame those?
Okay. So a couple of things. I don't believe in coincidences, right? I mean, there might be a coincidence that I wear a red shirt and you wear a red shirt, and okay, that's no big deal. Like, that's not important to anything. But as far as people that you meet, people that you marry or work with, or where you go to school, like, I don't, in my opinion, I don't believe in coincidences, right? I think that things are, they happen for a reason, is my point. I believe that things happen for a reason. And for instance, I believe that I was supposed to be born to, right, Jimmy Snuka and Sharon Ely, right? I believe that. And I was supposed to be their son. And my dad, he actually tried to be a baseball player at first. And he was there in Hawaii. He played for the Hawaii Islanders, right? Semi-pro team there in Hawaii back in the day. And that didn't work out. And it led him to, my mom being pregnant and him not having a good job and realizing I got to make more money. And he started wrestling because my mom was pregnant with me. And they told him you can make good money from doing this. So he actually left Hawaii, right, to go and travel around and wrestle. So what that has to do with my greatest, I would say, accomplishments, but also some of the biggest struggles I've ever had and overcome, is pro wrestling's been a part of my life since before I was born, right? It was the reason my dad started wrestling. And it's been a part of my life, even though I tried to stay away from it and didn't want to do it. And I learned so much from professional wrestling, and I actually use that today in my line of work. And when I'm speaking or whatever I'm doing, trying to help people, athletes, I use it all the time. And the reason I would say that this would be my biggest triumph is, I was supposed to wrestle, I believe that, but maybe not to have the 30, 40-year career my dad had, but so that I could understand my dad, I could understand pro wrestling, and I could use that in my life. I mean, what I'm saying is a lot of times the only reason people will listen to me is because I wrestled, because I was on TV, right? Because I was on pay-per-views. And I've used that now to be able to help athletes do things they've never done before, or coaches, or, different athletic programs. And I would have to say that going through that tough part of learning to wrestle, because I wanted to quit so many times, I wanted to give up. And probably the biggest takeaway, outside of spending time with my dad and learning from him, learning from all the people that I got to learn from, is I learned in professional wrestling that there's a million different moves that you have, right? You can clothesline, superfly, rock bottom, right? All these different moves, Superman punch, okay, headlock, body slam. But the only move that matters, in all honesty, is the move that you do at the finish. It's the only move that matters. You can screw up everything in a wrestling match, but if you get the finish right, if you do the finish properly, if you get the finish down, right, then that's what matters. And that literally taught me so much. And so think about this in your own life. It Well, we were talking about marriage earlier, right? And I had these struggles with my wife, had all these different things. And okay, in a marriage, if I could worry about only one move or one finish, who am I going to worry about, me or my wife? Well, I mean, there's a part I got to take care of myself, of course, but in the really I got to take care of my wife. If she's happy, if I take care of her, if that's my finisher, I'm going to be good. Like she'll take care of me too, right? I put her first. And that literally taught me what I needed to know in life. And I used that in so many different places as I would get confused, kind of like we were talking about trust, right? Is I was getting confused. I was like, okay, what's the one thing? What's the finisher here? What's the one move I can concentrate on? Who's the one person I need to listen to? Ricky Steamboat. Okay, what's the one, right? And if you'll use that literally in your struggles or whatever you're doing, that makes all the difference. And that's been like the huge triumph in my life. So, and I'll share this, for your audience as well, is a lot of people you may not realize. So I struggled with suicidal thoughts a lot. um Probably the first time I can think of it, maybe like the first time I'd heard of it was probably when I was in my teenage years. I think I had an aunt, my dad's sister. She had committed suicide. She was in the military, and so that was the first time I'd heard of it. And then I never really thought of it until I think I was an adult, and I was married, and then I just started having these thoughts. And I just I dealt with suicide like all the time. Just I never really did anything. I just would have these thoughts like you'd be better off dead. Your family would be better if you weren't around. You should just die. I literally would have these thoughts all the time. And when I realized again, okay, what's my finisher? Well, do I want to end like that? Do I want it to be like that? And I have to remind myself sometimes, right? Not all the time, but sometimes I got to remind myself, okay, what do I want the finish of my life to be like? What do I want that to look like? What do I want people to remember me by? And you're basically using all these finishers to try to strengthen your mind, strengthen your spirituality, strengthen your mental game, strengthen your emotional game, so that you basically, don't concentrate on all that negativity. Because I'm actually a very negative person by nature, and I had to train myself to be more positive. I had to train myself to think about things in a better way. And so for me, if I had to say one thing, it would be that is coming away from professional wrestling, realizing the importance of a finisher, realizing the importance of one thing or one move. And you basically can use that in any place in life. So here's a real application, right? If you're in sports and you're trying to think of, let's just take basketball, for instance. Okay, what's the very most important skill in basketball? The one thing. If you could do this one skill in basketball better than any other skill, what would it be, right? Well, everybody needs to be able to shoot, or everybody needs to be able to dribble, or become a passer, right? So you're finding that one skill that you can do and become really good at that. If you could become a really good passer, because not everybody can be a great shooter, and you just concentrate on that. That's basically how I help athletes or athletic programs or coaches. I help them figure out what's the one or two things they can do to focus on, as their finisher, that's going to basically get to them to the finish line faster. And they're able to get.
Hey, hey, I don't know what happened. I think you got me. Can you hear me? It got muted all of a sudden.
Oh,
Oh, okay. Yeah. Can, should I talk a little bit?
are you? Oh,
Oh,
my
okay.
bad.
Yeah.
Are you?
Okay. Yeah.
Are
Yeah.
you
I can hear
good?
you now. I don't know why what happened. It like muted just at the end of your last sentence. It like muted. I don't know why. That's cool though. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So you need me to repeat that, or?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you don't mind repeating just that last part, I don't know, like the last maybe 5 6 words, it got just muted all of a sudden, and I saw you like lip syncing. It was kind of weird.
Oh, okay. My bad.
No,
What
not.
was the last thing you heard me say?
I just remember you mentioning about the. Oh, geez. Sorry. Kind of lost my train of thought. I just remember you mentioning about uh dude. Oh my gosh. I don't know. I don't know. All of a sudden, you know, to be honest with you, man, when you started talking about the suicide stuff, uh, I just got I just started feeling like this this warm fuzzy feeling, and I don't know why it was kind of consuming me a little bit because I know there's a lot of guys that are struggling with that, and you know, I to be honest, there was a time in my life that I had thought about that too, because you know, when my mom passed away, when I was a kid, it didn't bother me as much, but as I started getting older, I started noticing other people talking about their moms and being with their moms and stuff like that. Then I started to realize, like, yeah, I'm lacking something. It felt that hole that was in my life was pretty significant. And when you mentioned about um your your the finish, the analogy of the finisher, which is super cool, but I never thought about that type of metaphor. Uh, you know, there's been maybe like one or two times, especially after the pandemic, where I thought to myself, I don't know what value I provide for my family. You know, I was just feeling down and out. And long story short, what I thought about uh, was remembering what it was like when my mom was gone. Yeah. And then
Mm.
thinking, what would it be like if I did that finisher and took my own life, and then my kids wouldn't have a parent, you know,
Yeah.
like how I grew up. And I didn't want that for them. Uh, I didn't want that for them, man. Uh, and so that helped big time. And
Mm.
I don't know, when you said that word, you had suicidal thoughts before. I'm like, oh, dude, that just hit me right to the heart, man, big time. Because
Mm.
and I know for a fact I'm not the only one going through it, especially amongst Polynesian men.
Yeah.
There's there's a lot of other guys, personal friends of mine, that have talked about it with me, and I know some of you, my classmates from high school. You know, I went to Kamehameha, and I think two, three of my classmates died from suicide, bro. And I'm like, what the heck is going on, bro? It's crazy, you know. And so when you mentioned that, I apologize, man. My mind was just kind of just thinking about all these different things, and I don't know if it was spirit or what, but yeah, yeah. I mean, um, yeah. Sorry for going off on a tangent on that, but seriously, what you said though is super impactful. Like I needed to hear that, and I know a lot of other
Mm.
brothers needed to hear that too. And luckily, whatever got blanked out on what you said, I promise it was only like the last like 5 6 words or whatever. But yeah, I yeah, man. When you said you were dealing with that and having families and the finisher and everything, I was just, oh, bro, that's it's powerful stuff, bro. So thanks, thanks for saying
Oh,
that.
for sure, my man. I think, I think a lot of people struggle with it. I know one thing that helped me, right, is my dad had mentioned to me, right, that he'd thought about that before, like suicide, right? Just that he thought about it. And, one of the things that kept me together is like, well, he never, he was around, right? He didn't take his own life. And I was like, well, if he can hang around knowing all the junk, all the trash my dad had to deal with in his life growing up, right? Having a stepfather that just beat the trash out of him, right? All his life growing up as a kid and just, running away from home and just everything that he had to deal with from his life, being so hard. And he never, decided to take his life. And I, that's just a small piece of what I'm telling you right now he had to deal with. And I said, okay, if my dad never took his life, that I can't take my life. I can't do that. As like that doesn't make any sense. And I think, for anybody that might be struggling with that, honestly, those bad feelings, those negative feelings, those negative thoughts, like they actually do pass. Like they don't stay around. If you can hang on just a little bit longer, like another day, another hour, another minute, another second, honestly, those thoughts do leave. They do go away, right? And and I know a couple of things, and I'll mention this real quick, is I know a couple of things. I had really good people around me, but you got to lean on your family. You got to lean on faith. I'm not talking about religion. Now, I'm religious. I believe in that. I'm talking about a belief system. I'm talking about what do you believe in, right? I give you a good example. So, for instance, I either have $10 in my pocket, in my right pocket, or I don't, right? I either do or I don't. That's true whether you feel that, believe that, or you don't, right? Now, whether there's a higher power, a God, or Allah, or Jehovah, or the Great Spirit, or whatever you call it, either there's somebody there or there's not. Just like there's either $10 in my pocket or there's not. So I'm talking about a belief system is what I'm talking about. And whatever you believe in, but you got to believe in something and let that help you as well. Like those things, strong support system, strong belief system, like those things really help believe, pull me through. That was the standard I was trying to live, right? Is a strong belief system, support system with family and stuff. Like that stuff can really make a difference. It can really help. I think the other thing is that I keep feeding my brain with positive things. I keep feeding my brain with things that are going to uplift me. Like, have you ever watched that movie Marshall? It's about the college. It's a football movie about a school, the college Marshall University, I believe it's called. And basically, everybody on the plane, the whole football team was on the plane except for like this one coach that didn't get on the plane because he wanted to go see his wife or something. And then, a bunch of the other players that were injured, so they didn't travel with the team. But basically, the plane goes down, everybody dies. True story. Good movie. You should watch it. And I watched that movie, and I basically that helped me as well as I saw it, and I thought to myself, and this is a time when I was struggling, right? I was really struggling, and I thought, okay, here's a whole plane full of people who didn't choose to die; they died. They didn't have a choice. The plane crashed, and they were all dead, every one of them. How many families were infected because of that, right? How many kids? How many wives? How many husbands? A lot of people were affected, grandparents, everything. A lot of kids never going to be born from those families. And I thought, here I am thinking about taking my own life when these people didn't have a choice. I was like, that's entirely selfish on my part. That is so freaking selfish. How could I think like that? That's terrible. And so that was another thing, that really helped me understand is like when we're talking about being selfish and not thinking of other people's, if you just think about yourself and take your own life, but it's being so selfish. I promise you that you thinking that life is better without you, that's a lie. Total lie. Totally not true. Totally not true.
Super cool, man. Yeah, that whole idea about selfishness too. I think I've heard that from maybe a couple other my friends too. Some of the guys on the podcast have mentioned about dealing with it as well. And yeah, man, because it's such a bad thing to go through. Like also when you mentioned about positive mindsets, um, doing this kind of stuff is very helpful for me too. Like getting a lot of advice and manao from people like you who have gone through so much and how you overcame it. It literally helps me big time. Just one of the reasons why I enjoy this doing these interactions, with my friends and whatnot. And um, I, I never thought that I would do something like this, and it grow to how it's been. Like, yeah, I mean, just honestly, man, just have just the fact that you are willing to do this. I felt like I won already. Really, man, because I mean, I didn't know the impact it was going to have. I gotta tell you this. So one of the things that happened on the show was one of my classmates is a single mother, and she reposted the podcast link on her Facebook, and she had mentioned to me, she gave me a shout out and said, Gabon, I really appreciate what you're doing because now I can show my daughter that there are good single men, good men out there, Polynesian men, good men out there, and I can show my son examples of what good Polynesian men are. Gentlemen like yourself and everybody else has been on the show. And then now having you on here, to me, it just takes it to a whole nother level, bro. Really. Just volunteering your time to do this. I mean, you were talking earlier about you like being selfish by nature. I'm like, you could have fooled me, bro. You could have fooled me because you didn't have to do this. You didn't have to come to this, knowing that, yeah, you have that credibility and the fact that you mentioned it earlier. People who are on TV, they have a certain level of credibility and whatnot, so people are more likely to listen to them.
Yeah.
So you just showing up like this is huge. You know, but you back it up with all these experiences that you've had, and some rough experiences too with your family, and going on the road and doing following your pops, and then going through divorce, suicidal thoughts, all these things, and look at where you are now, bro. It's like it's I feel honored and humbled to have this opportunity to talk story with you. And I just never thought it would happen, because the last time I seen you on TV, you were you were jump kicking, I think it was Brian Kendrick in the face. That's the last time I saw you on TV. I think you jump kick Brian Kendrick just like with that awesome finisher, and everybody was like, "Oh!" I think you guys won tag team championships at that time, and then going from that to here, never thought it would happen, man. So yeah, it's super cool. Yeah, sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent on that, but yeah.
No, I think it's wonderful, man. Honestly, what you're doing here, right? And just talking about what you are feeling inside, right? It's the same reason I jumped into wrestling. Is like I need to go and do this, and now I know why, right? Is because I can be helpful. I can be more helpful. Um, and you doing this, I mean, everybody needs help. That's the thing I realized, is like I couldn't have wrestled without my dad's help, without Rock's help, without Ricky Steamboat's help, right? Like everybody needs help along the way. And so whether you got suicidal thoughts, or you're trying to be a better athlete, or better at whatever it is, business or marriage, but you need help. That's like the thing is I think by nature, you're like, oh no, I get them, I can do it. Like I remember you mentioning that, right? No, I can do it. I can do it all myself. It's like, okay, there is a point where yes, you should do stuff on your own, but there's also a point where you need somebody else's help. Like think of suicidal thoughts, or think of trying to be better, a better marriage, or whatever. Like the same situation I gave you about me trying to start wrestling is like I needed help. And so I'm asking Dwayne, right, where should I go? Go to your dad. He can help you. And I think that's the same thing for any of us, especially us Polynesian men, is sometimes you just go get help from somebody. Sometimes it's family, sometimes it's a friend, sometimes it's a professional, sometimes it's some really good YouTube videos, like maybe like what you're doing here, right? And so I think a lot of times we just got to understand that you need help. And I think for me, that was something that I didn't understand, right? I got that Polynesian pride that, no, I don't need help. I got this. And, I've been there. I've been there. I still do that sometimes, right? Maybe like, I don't know, last week or, you know, so I think it's important that we all try to lean into those things that can help us. And that's why I say a belief system, having a standard of what you believe in, is so crucial, because who's going to be more helpful than an all-powerful creator? Who would be more helpful than that? That's my opinion, and you can choose to believe it or not, but in all honesty, that's what helped me. And I think that's why a lot of people will find a strong belief system when they're struggling, because you got to turn somewhere, and turning to help from others, help from good information, help from the truth. Um, we talked about that. Trust is everything, and I talk about that a lot. Well, who can you trust the most? People that know better than you, people that have been there. So that's what I would say on that, my man.
That's good stuff, brother. Yeah, when you talk about Polynesian pride, that was one thing that a therapist had mentioned to me one time because I was going through a rough spot and I just needed help. So I actually saw a therapist and she had told me that it's interesting because mental illness is so rampant in Hawaii for several couple of reasons. One, in Polynesian culture, like you said, we tend to feel like, yeah, I get them. I don't need help. And then like in Asian culture, because Asian culture is big in Hawaii too, they
Yep.
tend to sweep it under the rug and not mention it. They don't want to talk about it and whatnot. So yeah, that's something definitely that's an issue. I wanted to ask you about your children. Um, how has it been now? Your children see you as a great example of all the things you've done. From being in fame and being on TV and stuff to doing being a mentor now and going through all those challenges and stuff. What are you? Um, I guess what are like your children's interests now, and then how are you helping them to prosper and grow and develop?
Uh, Great question. I would say so. All of my kids have been athletes. Just kind of something that runs in our family, runs in our blood, right? And so I'll talk about my oldest first. So she's a girl. Her name's Pinina, and she actually played really high level volleyball. She's actually helping out with the women's volleyball team over at BYU right now. And one of the things, so she was playing in college, and I'd offered my help to the coach, to her coaches, like they were trying to win some games and do some stuff, right? And so I'd offered, and the coaches went to her and they'd asked her, they're like, hey, listen, we're thinking about bringing your dad in to have him help us, and how do you feel about that? And they're like, well, she's like, well, honestly, my dad's been doing this my whole life. I mean, he helped me win a state championship. He's been training me my whole life, and so it's just like another day for for her, because that's what I do. Some dads work on cars, some dads work on computers, and I help athletes and programs. So I in that vein, I think it's just something that my kids have grown up with. They've seen. um my dad was a great speaker. He was great at, like, when he would talk to people, and I love this. I remember one time they'd invited him to go and speak somewhere. He was speaking to a bunch of the kids, a bunch of youth. And I remember just seeing him standing up there and he was just talking. And, of course, he's, famous at this time and everything else. And I remember just looking at him and just looking out at the audience, listening to him. And everybody was just like glued to whatever he was saying. And it was just dead silent. And everybody was hanging on every word he was saying. And I remember just thinking to myself, um, just kind of in awe, right? Like I was in awe a little bit of him doing that. And just remembering that he was helpful. He was helpful to everybody he was talking to. And so I've tried to talk to my kids in when they go and they do sports, or when they go and they do life. Um, for instance, that oldest one, or any of my kids, is like, okay, listen, and you've heard this from a lot of different people. They say the same thing, is, okay, you're going to come in there and you're going to play for this coach, and they have a family too, and they're trying to feed their family, and they brought you in to help them win, and you're going to help feed their family by what you do on that court, and don't you dare go over there and misrepresent our family, and think about yourself and be selfish over there with that coach and that program and whatever, right? And this could go at any level, but I was specifically talking to her about the college level. Is you got to think about that coach and his family, and the other coaches and their families, and you got to go and you got to make that program better. You got to try and deliver on what they're trusting you to do. Again, everything's based on trust. And so I've tried to instill a lot of that in my kids. And I've talked a lot about myself on this, but in all honesty, I picked a great wife. Absolutely, like it. Young people. Hey, if we got any young people listening to this, listen, you can pick anybody. You can choose anybody, okay, to be with. You might as well choose good or choose really good if you can. And my wife's she's exceptional, and she's really the one who raised our kids. She taught me a lot of things. I've spoken a lot about my dad and things I learned from wrestling, but in reality, I learned a lot partnering with my wife. You know, these 29 years that we've been together, and you know, we dated a little bit before that, and just trying to instill in our kids a standard, to live a moral standard, and have them affect other people's lives in a good way and try to be less selfish. I feel like that's helped them a lot. And now what's the great thing is now, my oldest is 27. I think she's 27, and I've got a son who's 26. He's married, and I got a grandkid on the way. I'm so excited, pumped about that. Is now they're teaching us, right? Is like sometimes, like I remember the time with my dad where I started teaching him, and now my kids are teaching me. And you tell me what's better than that? What's better than you trying to teach your kids and now they teach you and they're helping other people? But I don't know if there's anything much better than that, is seeing your kids, having a positive effect on other people. I mean, I don't know you that well, right? We just barely met online, and here you are, we're doing this podcast, but right. What's interesting to me, I watch patterns again, and right, I'm interested in your parents. I'm interested in your dad and your mom and sisters and family, because you know you having the desire to do this and to help other people, but that came from somewhere. Like good thoughts, positive things, they don't come from nowhere. Like it's just not made up, right? Everything has a source. Everything. Water comes from a source, right? Energy comes from a source. Everything comes from a source, and you basically got this from a source. So, from your family or whatever. I think that's one of the great things about our cultures. It can be the good things, the positive. We won't talk about the negative things. We just leave that stuff out, right? But the all the positive things our culture. It can be a great source. The family, the mana, right? That spirit, the our ancestors. Like you got to use all that stuff to help you. I have. It's helped a lot, and I think I love the thought of family, the thought of a strong belief system, and seeing my kids thrive in that. I don't know if there's anything better than that, in all honesty.
Brother. Thank you so much, man. I wish you could talk some more, bro. Sorry, I'm so that we gotta end the episode, man, because I think I used up like 20 minutes past your time too, man. So I apologize, brother. Uh no, seriously, you don't know how happy I am that you were able to do this. And honestly, there's gonna be tons of people watching this episode. You didn't see it, but I was posting on Facebook. I was doing your PR work, man, on my Facebook. I was saying, for the first time ever on Holy Kaika, we got the son of Superfly Jimmy Snuka on the show. I was just posting it, and my friends like, "What? No way, you got him!" It's like, dude, watch, tune in on Thursday. But seriously, all the things that you said, powerful, impactful stuff, bro. I can't thank you enough for doing this, man. I don't know. We're probably gonna talk story a little bit after the show, because yeah, I hope you stay in touch, big time. And yeah, and we can talk story a little bit more about things and whatnot. But much aloha to you, bro, and mahalo for doing this show, man. Seriously, thank you so much.
Thank, thank you so much for doing a show like this and trying to be helpful like this, man. I'll say this last thing on my way out is, in wrestling, but you got to keep your hands up and you got to be ready to fight. And I think that's the same thing in life. When you're struggling and going through stuff, you got to find ways to get your hands up and fight. And what you doing here is a great way to help other people get their hands up and fight.